Hi, welcome to Catch a Fire TV, where we are all about igniting your life's passion, purpose, and profession. I'm your host, Mina Grace Drake, and in this episode of This Woman's Work, we are joined by the lovely Rebecca Arora, who is a women's coach and a mind-body practitioner. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Rebecca, tell us about the journey to the work that you're doing today. Did you always know that you'd be a women's coach and mind-body practitioner?
Sure. I'd like to say I had that figured out. Actually, the interesting part is even when it was time for my first job, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I learned how to computer program, and that was a good thing and a bad thing. It was a good thing because it was a wonderful skill. It was a bad thing because it wasn't necessarily what I enjoyed doing. I moved to work for a startup, and then I came to California to work for a large software development company.
Okay.
And still searching, still feeling like I was kind of banging my head against the wall a bit, learning a lot and enjoying the growth, but really frustrated.
Yeah.
As I mentioned to you before, I would have these bouts of literally crying in the bathroom, and to me that was almost like my emotions refusing to be quiet.
Right.
And they started to really come out and signal to me, hey, something's off. You need to do something about this.
Yeah, and listening to you talk, I just really sensed that you were likely very good at the work that you did, and so I just because you're already just so brilliant naturally, so I just imagine anything that you apply yourself to, that you really excelled. And so did you find any kind of contradictory with that in terms of I'm actually doing well in this job even though it's not fulfilling, and at the same time feeling that there's something more waiting for you?
Certain patterns were ingrained in me, about how to do a job and how to do it well. And I was very tied into those rewards. When you do a job well and then you get certain accolades or promotions or different things happen, and it all feeds the cycle.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to really break that because
Right.
it seems really good.
Yeah.
And to me, again, that's part of why this other thing that was happening on the side was really important, because if it weren't for these signals coming to me, I probably would have just kept going.
Okay, yeah. So tell us about those signals, because I find that in having these conversations, there's sometimes a commonality and relatability as to what the signals are, but at the same time, they're unique to all of us.
So for me, again, it was almost my emotions took over. I had no choice but to listen, and I'm really grateful for that, because unless it was loud enough at that level, I wouldn't have heard it.
So once you were listening, then where did that take you? Where did that voice call you to?
It sent me asking questions.
Okay.
What's going on here? What do I love? If I'm so unhappy that I'm in tears, then what else is there?
Okay.
And fortunately, at that time I knew a friend of mine who was at I'm smiling because I told you about this when I mentioned hippie camp, who was at hippie camp, which is a retreat center down in Big Sur called Esalen. And so I went there just to try a class, a week-long workshop, and it happened to be the woman who is a Brazilian shaman. And the interesting thing is, in that 1 week, even the fact that I was there and I chose that class, it wasn't an accident. There were certain lingerings of, ooh, this seems interesting to me, that had started many years prior.
Really?
An interest in, the Amazon, shamans, Native American healing. So a lot of the, and Eastern modalities in healing. So these were sort of the beginnings of what I call breadcrumbs that were starting. Being there and having some of these experiences to really open things up.
Yeah.
And really say, oh, this way of being in the world, is that true? Is that real? What is real? And just kind of asking some pretty big questions for the first time.
Yeah.
And having some pretty far out experiences that really changed my understanding of who I am.
Coming into this space, did suddenly the skies open up and all the right answers fall at your feet, and you left hippie camp like fully loaded, yeah, with your purpose and your passion. What was it really like for you?
Yeah, the reality was I was still learning. So there was that figuring out of the steps, and I knew it became clear that the things that I started learning there, and particularly with the Zen therapy work, because I started to experience a shift in my body.
Okay.
And so as my body shifted, my perspective on the world started shifting.
Amazing.
Which, yeah, that was really
Yeah, yeah, the correlation I think isn't often brought to surface.
And I had enough experiences of that, whether it was with the body or whether it was the emotions. Something would change, and then other things would have to kind of catch up with it.
Okay.
So I think part of what we're talking about here is almost a little bit of that lag time, where my body started to have a new grounding, a new foundation, and everything else kind of still needed to catch up. You know, I started a nonprofit because I thought, oh, I love mentoring, and I love working with young people. I did end up coming back to technology for a little while. But what started happening is these callings, these little seeds, these kind of babies of mine, I was nurturing them on the side. Where they weren't fully ready to take steps on their own yet.
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing up that point, because sometimes there could be just like that deep desire to live fully in that space. And so it's like take that new seed, that new baby, and like go tell it to direct traffic on the El Camino. You know, it's just like instantly send it out. And
we don't want it to get plowed down.
No, exactly. And I think just you really bring up a beautiful point of nurturing the seed and allowing it to be in whatever phase that it is right now. How did you know along the way that you were on the right path, and when it was time to let one of those forks in the road go?
I think there was a combination of knowing and trusting, like the having enough of those experiences where I felt I could trust myself. I felt like I'm confident enough. I may not have all the answers. When do we ever have it figured out? But
Right.
I may not have all the answers, but I know that what I know is enough. And I can do this, and I love this.
I know you've been doing the work that you're doing now for a while now. And when you talk about it in our previous conversations, you talk about it with such reverence, which I so appreciate. You know, like you're saying, that the work must come through, and, you know, okay, what's my part? It's not about me, but it's about, you know, the service and the transformation that must come through, and we get the opportunity to be channels.
Right.
And so I'd love for you to talk more about that. Yeah.
What I love about this, because one of the things when we were talking, you talked about the word help, or the word, you know, who do you help?
Right.
Which is a natural question. And so what comes up there is a distinction to be made, which is really critical in the work, both in the body work that I provide as well as the coaching, because there's a certain responsibility. So my role is really to be a facilitator. And I'm not helping because there's nothing to help. The person has to, it's like they've got to own it.
Yeah.
They and really take that responsibility for their change. Because when they do that, they're in their power too. It's their work. It's not my work.
Right.
And that's critical too. Even in some of the work where there's a power in just showing up for yourself and saying, this is my life and these are the choices that I'm making.
And one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about was creativity and artistry. I know we both have an affinity for the artist way and identifying as an artist. And I would love to hear your thoughts as to how creativity and self-expression as like an opportunity to, make our life the canvas on which we get to create art, which we call our life. Like, where do you find this in the journey?
My take on creativity is like coming back to our childlike self. And the way that I love it so much as connected to my work is if I could do anything, or if anything were to happen, for that person to come back to who they are, unencumbered by their life's patterns and blocks and beliefs and
Right.
oh, this happened and now, so where you get to just play and just be curious and just, wow, I tried that, I love this, and that to me actually those become the breadcrumbs that light up the path, and that comes from the juicy creative process. That it's not about judgment, it's not about criticizing, it's about pure creativity.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, especially the whole aspect of coming back to the childlike self, because every time we look at a child's perfect, and they're
Absolutely.
so undeniable of themselves and what they want to create. I'm making mud pies today, and
Yeah,
there's
and look
nothing
at
wrong.
me, I made the perfect
Yes,
mud pie.
right, and it's a mess, and it's okay, and that's part of the fun. I think
Yeah.
that's the whole thing too, that it doesn't have to be perfect and clean and even make sense at all times.
Life is messy.
Yeah, it's very messy. Yeah. So I am sure that people watching this video are curious to find out, tell us more about the work that you're doing today.
So the work that I'm doing is, for the most part, I'm working with women.
Okay.
I incorporate both some of those coaching aspects, and as well as body work, emotional work, and even energetic work. A lot depends on who the person is and where they're at. What I've found is, and we talked about this, mind, body, spirit, all of it's one. And we hear that a lot, but that's an example of that. Let's say someone's in a car accident.
Okay.
And they are thrown off, the neck gets thrown, different things happen. Because the body has shifted and gone through some trauma,
Right.
things start to go with it. You start to feel a little bit more grumpy and down, and all of a sudden the world seems harder and harder to bear. Why? Because your posture took a hit.
Okay.
So something needs to shift. And it can be in multiple ways. What I found is usually the body shifting, it's kind of the shortcut or the superhighway. When you're free physically, the mind is a lot more quiet.
Yeah.
The emotions also, there's a peace in that. So I do a lot with coaching, but again, somehow connecting and really tying in with the body is critical.
So people wanted to connect with you, find out more about your work, interested in seeing how you can help them in this transformative space. What's the best way to connect with you?
I always love to start with a phone call, and usually the best way scheduling-wise is to send me an email. So my email is Rebecca, that's REBECCA, @AlignTheSelf.
Yeah, we will have that right here. Very cool. Thank you. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for this time. Thank you for sharing with us your beautiful, tender, powerful story, and just thank you for being a light that illuminates the world. So, thank you. Yeah. And thank you for joining us for this episode of This Woman's Work, and we'll see you next time.